أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله أحمده واستعينه واستديه واستغفره وأؤمن به جل وعلا ولا أكفره وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى والدين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. All praise is due to Allah. I praise Him. I seek His help. I seek His guidance. I ask His forgiveness. I believe in Allah and do not disbelieve in Him. And I bear witness that there's none worthy of worship except Allah. And I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and His messenger. Allah sent him, that is Muhammad, with Deen al-Haq, with a true way of life. And this true way of life, al-Islam, shall overwhelm all other ways of life. Although the mushriks, although those who associate partners with Allah may hate it. Oh, there's a time right there. Okay, good. Assalamu alaikum. It's nice to see everyone. Nice to see everyone. Alhamdulillah. Reviving the Muslim community, an important topic. One of the things that we're noticing, of course, is that we're living in a time where, terms like Islamophobia, terms like witch hunt, terms like the war on Islam, war on terrorism, so on and so forth, which is actually a war on Islam. And there's a tendency for us to put emphasis on that, the Islamophobia, the witch hunt, and so on and so forth. And so I'm suggesting to you that the Islamophobia and the witch hunt and the war on terrorism, the war on Islam, that's a reaction to something. That's a reaction. What is that reacting to? What is this Islamophobia campaign, this witch hunt campaign, what is this a reaction to? It's a reaction to the Islamic Revival. Islam is reviving and is in a state of revival. And it's very important that we put our emphasis on that first and foremost, before we emphasize the Islamophobia and that type of thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen us, chosen you, in terms of His youth, to be alive in this period in world history. We are living in a very historical period. And sometimes it's difficult for people to see and understand when we're living in a historical period. But we're seeing things that we've never seen before, or we're seeing things that we haven't seen since the 1960s and so on and so forth. Let me take you back, inshallah, the not too distant past, when Donald Trump became president. And he initiated the first Muslim ban. Remember that? The ban? And it was basically dealing with Muslims. Okay. Do you remember what happened? Americans, mostly white Americans, came out and shut down airports across the country on our behalf. That's unprecedented. That's historical. That has never, ever happened before. We're seeing some historical things taking place. Now, when you look at how much money has gone into vilifying Muslims and so on and so forth, after 9/11, post 9/11, and how much millions and millions and millions of dollars have gone into vilifying Muslims, and now we are seen by, let's say, a significant portion of the population, we are seen as being part of oppressed people. All right? And so when they had that huge women's march, the first one, huge, historical, right? Muslim women were represented there, right? And when we saw last week with the youth, right? The youth have not been that active since the 1960s. Okay, we are seeing some historical things taking place today. We are living in a very historical period. Now, there are approximately 1.6 billion Muslims in the world, and 60 to 65% of that 1.6 billion is 35 years old or under. 60 to 65% of our ummah are youth. And then when you look at that, and again, look at the situation with the fact that we're in an Islamic revival, and you're seeing articles that the fastest growing religion in America is Islam. The fastest growing religion in Europe is Islam. The fastest growing religion in the world is Islam. Islam will be the majority religion by 2000 and so on and so forth. Why are we experiencing like a resurgence? That's not supposed to be happening, right? Again, you have propaganda, you have military in almost all of our countries. There's confusion, chaos, killing, murder, so on and so forth in almost all of our countries. What is Islam doing still growing, right? We have a thing where we say that Islam is like a ball. If you drop the ball so high, it comes up so high. But if you take that ball and slam it to the ground, it's coming up higher and faster. That's Islam. If you leave Islam alone, it's just coming up. But if you try to take Islam and slam it to the ground, it's coming up higher and faster. So this is the error. This is the time that we're living in. Even the other day with Punish Muslim Day, that backfires. Because what happens is that it generates sympathy for us. It backfires. You know what I'm saying? So Allah is in charge, and Allah's plan has not been averted one iota. Allah's plan is still in full effect. Remember a couple of years ago, there was a campaign. It was surrounding the Muslim ban as well. We are all Muslim. Remember non-Muslims were saying that? We are all Muslims, right? Now, Jazakallah khair. Now, who would have thought that after 9/11, with all of this, all that stuff going on, anti-Muslim, so on and so forth, these types of things would develop? Who would have thought that? It's Allah. It's Allah. Allah has a plan. And one of the things that Allah is doing, Allah, you never know who Allah is going to choose as his soldiers, right? When the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu were in the cave, right, running away from the Quraysh, who did Allah choose as his soldiers, right? A spider's web and a bird's nest. That's who he chose as his soldiers. You never know who Allah chooses as his soldiers. Well, believe it or not, Allah's soldiers that he's choosing today are the Islamophobes. Allah's using them to help spread Islam. Allah's using the Islamophobes to help spread Islam. They don't know it because they're caught up in their arrogance, they're caught up in their hatred and so on and so forth, right? But they are actually helping to spread Islam by saying so much negative stuff about Islam, so on and so forth, right? The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that there will come a time where Islam will enter every house, every tent, right? Every nook and cranny, right? And you might say, God, oh my God, when? Now. Because all Allah has to do is put it there, then tweak it, right? And now it's something else. Allah's in control. So it's important that we understand that we are in a period of Islamic revival. It goes back. It goes back probably till 1979. And then it worked its way up. So I like to use history. I like to use the past as a way of understanding the present. And once we do that, I think history becomes more relevant. If we don't connect the past with the present, history is just, history. In 1979, there was a revolution, an Islamic revolution in the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Shah was the most powerful puppet in the Muslim world. He was powerful. Hewlett-Packard set up his spy network, set up a computer system, and set up a sophisticated spy network for him. Nixon basically opened up the arms warehouse, if you will, and told the Shah he could have almost anything. The Shah was a very powerful puppet. And the Shah, a year before he was overthrown, Jimmy Carter went to Iran and said, Iran is an island of stability in a sea of turmoil. The next year, the Shah was gone. And so what's important for you to understand is that when that Islamic revolution happened in Iran, it inspired the Sunnis. It inspired the Sunni Muslims. It wasn't no Sunni Shia back then, right? So Muslims in general were inspired. And I remember as a non-Muslim seeing hundreds of thousands of people in Malaysia and in Indonesia. It was in the U.S. News and World Report. I'm a non-Muslim. And these hundreds of thousands of people were walking through the protest or through the rally or what have you, with pictures of Ayatollah Khomeini. Now, I'm a non-Muslim. I don't know how significant that is, right? Because they ain't know about no Sunni Shia, all that kind of stuff, right? And so they had pictures of Khomeini. So it's important to understand that in 1979, that revolution in Iran inspired Sunnis as well. It inspired Muslims. That's what it inspired. And as a result of that, well, I won't talk about the result, but that's 1979. And then the Shia were like considered like the bad guys. They were like the monsters, right? And so us, and when I say us, I mean like black folks, right? We know Uncle Sam. We know Uncle Sam. We know the so-called white man in terms of how he thinks. And so we said back then, no, today it's the Shias, tomorrow it's the rest of us. No. And some of our people went for the okie doke. You know, the Shias are bad, the Sunnis are good. The Shias are bad, the Sunnis are good. And then that was in 1979. In 1982, Israel suffered its first defeat in its history when they were in Lebanon and they got kicked out by Hezbollah. 82. But they were quote unquote still Shias, those Shias. But in 1984, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan rose up and went against the Soviet Union. And these were, right, Sunnis, right? So you had 1979, a major puppet was kicked out. 1982, Israel suffers its first defeat and is forced to leave Lebanon. Never in its history did that happen. 1984, the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, not the Taliban. They came late. We're not talking about the Taliban. The Mujahideen who were fighting against the Soviet Union in 1984. And then in 1987, the Palestinian struggle went from secularism, nationalism to Islam with the rise of Hamas. Now, 79, 82, 84, 87, and the enemies of Islam saw what was happening. They saw what was happening. And that's why in 1990, that's when all the anti-Islam propaganda began. 1990. Beginning with what? The Gulf War. And with the Gulf War, the United States was able to bring much of their armaments to that part of the world because they saw 79, 82, 84, and 1987. They saw all of that. They saw that. And not only did they see that, but there was like revival taking place in all of these Muslim countries. There was Islamic revival taking place. While that revival was taking place in the Muslim countries, an Islamic revival was taking place inside the West, inside the house. People becoming Muslim, ex-Black Panthers becoming Muslims. I mean, it's like it was growing. It was growing. So 1990, Gulf War. 1991, documentary, Jihad in America. 1992, the book, Target America. Terrorists are trying to America, blah, 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 right? That kind of thing, right? 1993, the first World Trade Center bombing. Right? Israelis came over here. They told the World Trade Center people, you guys are vulnerable to a bomb at this this level. Oh no, we're not. Next thing you know, boom. Wow, they were right. So the first World Trade Center. 1994, government reports Islam, Muslims. 1995, 96, siege with Denzel Washington, because nobody can kill a terrorist as cool as Denzel Washington can, right? And so you saw in 1990 the buildup. Now, Malcolm was clear. Malcolm said, with respect to the black community, they present the black community is presented in the media as being a community of criminals. Number two, the overall society accepts that image. Number three, now the cops can come in and do anything they want. Why? Because the people are looking at the black community as a community of criminals. That's how it's presented. All right? And so now once the overall society looks at the black community as a community of criminals, now the police can come in and do anything they want. So that's what's happening in the 1990s. We were being slowly set up, right? It was being set up. And this went on from 1990 to like 2001, okay? And then, of course, on September 11, 2001, now that becomes the ultimate justification. We got to go into these Muslim lands and so on and so forth. In every Muslim country, there is an Islamic revival taking place. Islamic revivals can turn into Islamic movements. Islamic movements can morph into Islamic revolutions. Islamic revolutions can morph into Islamic government. What country went through that entire process? Iran. That's why they want to destroy Iran to this day. All the other countries have Islamic movements. So the thing is to contain them, to make sure that those Islamic movements don't, those Islamic revivals don't become Islamic movements, those Islamic movements don't become Islamic revolutions, so on and so forth. Egypt, for example, when they talked about the Arab Spring was part of the Islamic Revival, but they didn't present it like that. They presented it as part of the Arab Spring, and people want democracy, and people want, right? Until the elections came. Then you realize that it was part of the Islamic Revival, because every time there was an election, the people voted for Islam. Now that's naive. They're not going to allow us to vote in an Islamic order. No, Algeria tried that in 1992. In terms of Islamic Revival, there was an election that would happen in Algeria, and the Muslims swept that first election. There was another election coming, and the Muslims were going to sweep that one, and the military took over before that second election. You're not going to vote in an Islamic order. They're not going to play fair. They're not going to play fair. And so in Egypt, they're not going to vote in an Islamic order. And when the Egyptians went to the polls, so on and so forth, they voted for what? They voted for Islam, right? There were some mistakes made, but in terms of that aspect, they voted for Islam. That's how you could tell the Arab Spring was a part of the Islamic Revival. All right? So this thing is it's reviving, and it hasn't slowed down any at all. And so now when we talk about us and what's happening here, America is getting ready to go through a major upheaval. So when they dealt with the civil liberties from against Muslims, taking away the civil liberties of Muslims, that wasn't for us. We were the excuse. Who's at force for the American people? Because there's another upheaval coming that's involving the American people. The American people are getting upset with what's going on. The last election, a socialist ran. A socialist ran, right? And that socialist would have won, right? And he was running on socialism, right? And he would have won. He would have won. The Democratic Party, of course, subverted it because the Democratic Party is part of the same corporatocracy, right? They're owned by the same corporations as the Republican Party is. But you had a situation where American people are starting to get really fed up. So the Muslims were used, the terrorist Muslims were used as an excuse to suspend civil liberties. It ain't for the Muslims, it's for the Americans. It's for the Americans because there are major changes coming. Whenever you see, for example, wide gaps between the rich and the poor, social upheaval is coming in any system, whether it's communist system, Islamic system, a capitalist system. Whenever there's a huge gap between the rich and the poor, social upheaval is right around the corner. And they know it. They know it. And they're not trying to create jobs and living wages and so on. No. What they're doing is they're suspending civil liberties, so on and so forth, and getting camps ready and that type of thing for the American people. So America is a declining empire. It's in decline. And usually empires reach a state of decline. All empires do, right? They decay from within, and they involved in global overstretch, what's called. They're just involved in too much stuff around the world. And now you're taking so much money, and you're funneling so much money in the war machine, right? And the rich are paying less taxes. So this bad boy here is in trouble. America's in deep trouble, right? So you see the rampant corruption, you see the rampant injustice, the rampant immorality, and so on and so forth. That's what's happening in America, and the people are slowly waking up. So again, when we saw what the youth did, that was historical last week. If I can just talk very briefly, inshallah. First, let me say this. Let me relate this hadith to you. Because there's a tendency for Muslims to talk about the end times, the end times, the end times. You hear Muslims talk like that? The end times. This must be the end times. The last I checked, Arabia is not a forest. Arabia is not a forest. There's no flowing rivers running through Arabia. It's still sand. It's still desert, right? So let's not talk about end times until we see certain things. Sometimes we get into end time talk because we don't want to do what's necessary, what's required of us today. Now, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and hardly anybody talks about this hadith. It's Sahih hadith. It's from Ahmed. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, talked about these 5 periods. He said there will be a period of prophethood, and Allah will allow that to continue as long as He chooses. Then there will be a period of Khulafa Rashida, and Allah will allow that to continue as long as He chooses. And then there's a period of biting mulukiya, kingship. We stop at Ali because after Ali, the caliphate became based on kingship, right? So he said, then there'll be a period of kingship, a biting kingship, right? And Allah will allow that to continue as long as He chooses. And then he said there'll be a period of the Jabreen, like huge powers, right? Huge powers imposing on the Muslims. And Allah will allow that to continue as long as He chooses. And then there will be a return to the caliphate based on the pattern of prophethood. So we're talking about end times, but we ain't talking about that hadith. Because it seems like we are in the period of the Jabreen, right? The colonial powers, imperial powers, and so on and so forth, like overwhelming us, that type of thing, right? And while we are in that period, there's an Islamic revival taking place in the world, an Islamic revival. We are living in a very historical period. And Islam is poised to play a major role in the next phase that America is ready to go through. Islam is poised to play a major, major role. And so there's got to be, again, the Muslim youth. You've got to be involved. And wherever you're at, okay, this is your community now. So you got to be involved. You got to be active. And then you all, and not just the Muslim youth, but you all children of immigrants, you are the connector between the indigenous Muslims and the immigrant Muslims. You're the connector because you got both in you. You got an immigrant background, but you were born and raised here. So you have an indigenous perspective. That's why sometimes you and your parents don't see eye to eye on certain things because they're coming from an immigrant mentality. You're coming from an indigenous mentality. You're coming like you're home. This is home, that type of thing, right? But you guys are the connector between those two. So in this age of revival, it's important that we understand that Muslim youth are coming back to Islam. They're coming back to Islam. Some of you are part of the road. Some of you are feeling it, right? You're making your way back to Islam. It usually happens in college. It usually happens at the university, where Muslims, brothers and sisters, start making this move back towards Islam. You are part of a historical process. So the same thing happened to us. Some of us may be further along in our return. We may be further along in our return, or some of us who took Shahada, so on and so forth, but some of us are like in the initial stages of their return, which is why we have to be patient with each other. Gotta be patient with each other. Don't come down on the brother because his beard ain't down to his ankles. You know what I'm saying? Don't come down on the sister because she ain't hijab yet. You know what I'm saying? It's like, don't do that. Be patient with each other. Because not only are we dealing with Islamophobia stuff, but we're dealing with personal stuff too. Everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Everybody's going through something today. All colors of people, everybody's going through something, right? That's just the time that we're living in, right? You have Muslims suffering from depression and so on and so forth. We going through it. So either it's a situation where it's a collective or if a situation where it's individualized, but we going through it. So we have to be patient with each other. Now, in terms of reviving the Muslim community, there's also a hadith in which the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, Islam is built on 5 things: Shahada, Salat, Saum, fasting, Zakat, right? Hajj. Now, listen to that. Islam is built on 5 things. So here's the 5 pillars of Islam. There's something built on top of that, right? And these 5 pillars are holding up this thing that's built on top of it. Islam is built on 5 things. So when we talk about, well, what is it? What's on top of the pillars, right? One of the things that we have to do, brothers and sisters, and we have to get back to, Umar radiallahu anhu said that Islam is a mission. What is a mission? A mission is like a particular goal that you have, a particular goal, a purpose that you have that's accompanied by strong conviction. That's a mission. Umar said Islam is a mission. And so what I suggest to you, what I'm proposing to you, is that when the Prophet talked about that Islam is built on 5 things, what I'm proposing to you is that what it is that's built on the 5 pillars is the mission of Islam. It's the mission of Islam. And the prayer helps in that mission. And the fasting helps in that mission. And the zakat, the charity, helps in that mission. And then Hajj helps in that mission. But the mission of Islam, it's a mission. And if you look at the Sahaba, you'll see that the Sahaba had day-to-day problems too. There were some Sahaba who were worried all the time. There were some Sahaba who were sad. There were some Sahaba who had family problems. There were some Sahaba who had money problems. But nothing was important than the mission of Islam. Nothing was more important than that. So just like us, we're going to have issues. We're going to have all kinds of issues. We're living. We're going to have issues. Sometimes we're going to feel down. Sometimes we're going to feel anxiety. But there has to be something that is more important than just what we're going through. And that something is the mission of Islam. It's a mission. And as part of that mission, let me present it as 3 floors. So on these pillars, these 5 pillars, we put 3 floors. 3 floors. The first floor on these 5 pillars, and this all constitutes the mission of Islam. The first floor on these 5 pillars has to do with the self. To self. Taskil bin nafs, purification of the self, purification of the soul, individual, taqwa, God consciousness, learning what Islam is really about, meaning that the essence of Islam means what? That means Allah has a desire, Allah has a will, we have a will, we put our will on the back burner, and we submit ourselves to the will of Allah. We go with Allah. That's Islam. Ibrahim did not come up with the idea of sacrificing his son, slitting his son's throat. He didn't come up with that idea. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to do it. Now, did he personally, his son, his only son, that he asked Allah for? Now, if you ask what his own personal desire was, he probably wouldn't come up and say, I want to sacrifice my son. But that was Allah's desire. And what did Ibrahim do? Ibrahim put his desires, his will, his wants on the back burner. They were irrelevant. This is what Allah wants. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called that act Islam. That's Islam, right? He's submitting to Allah's will. The first floor on these pillars has to do with our personal submission and learning how to submit, learning how to do it, right? Learning how to obey, right? Jihad al-nafs, right? What did the Prophet say, peace be upon him? The greatest jihad is the struggle against the self, the struggle against the nafs. That's the greatest jihad. Not the highest one, but he said that's the greatest jihad, the struggle against the self. That's first floor. The second floor has to do with when Allah talks about struggle with the Quran and struggle with the Quran, a great struggle. What does that mean? Scholars point out that the Quran, what it means to struggle with the Quran is that we take the concepts, the ideas, the definitions, the opinions out of the Quran, and we use those concepts and opinions in our da'wah. We have to do da'wah. We have to do da'wah. We got to let people know what Islam is truly about. And also what goes along with da'wah is the amr wa nahi. Command the right and forbid the wrong. That is crucial for a Muslim. That's extremely crucial. That's what makes us the best people. You are the best people raised for the benefit of mankind. Ukhrajat means produced, right? To go out, right? And so you are the best people produced for the benefit of mankind. Why? Because you command what is right, you forbid what is wrong, and you believe in Allah. That's what makes us the best people. Not our race, not our color. What makes us the best people, Allah says, is that you command the right, Amr. You forbid the wrong, and you believe in Allah. So the second floor has to do with us taking these concepts that come from the Quran out to the society. They come from a secular perspective. We come from a perspective of the akhirah. They come with their experts. We come with the prophets. They come with shirk. We come with tawheed. See what I'm saying? They come with materialism. We come with ghaib. We come with a whole different way of looking at the world. And we're using these concepts coming from the Quran against these false concepts that they're spreading out with the people. So that's what Allah is saying. Struggle with the Quran. Struggle with it. A great struggle. It's a huge struggle because these people are using everything at their disposal to spread some false ideas. Ideas that are false, right? And one of the things that you'll find with the Quran, when you look at how they try to control people's minds, right? If someone is following the Quran and has a Quranic mentality, a Quranic perspective, a Quranic psychology, their minds cannot be controlled by anybody. Their minds cannot be controlled. Can't be. Can't be. Their minds are actually liberated. And our enemies know that. That Quran is powerful. So we are coming with a perspective from the Quran. Wage jihad, Allah says, with the Quran. Dawah, Amr wa Nahi. Third floor. The third floor is Iqamatul Deen. We have to build Islamic institutions. We have to establish Allah's deen. That's Quran, Iqamatul Deen. We have to establish Allah's deen. What aspect? All aspects. Social institutions, political institutions, economic institutions. I mean, serious business, right? We have to do that. We have to establish this deen. This world needs us. What do I mean by that? We don't expect everybody to become Muslim. But can you imagine if we are able to set up, for example, not necessarily here, but let's say in those places we're a majority and we take over Islam, and we set up a banking system that doesn't charge interest, which is what we would do. We would set up a banking system that doesn't charge interest. Do you know how much non-Muslims would benefit from that? What bank do you think non-Muslims would rather come to? Bank of America or ours? Heck yeah. They go into those Muslimics, right? They want to go to a Muslim bank, right? Because they know that, no, Muslims don't charge interest. Go to the Muslim bank. They don't charge interest. They ain't got to become Muslim. They ain't got to become Muslim. But the fact that they have an alternative, there's an alternative where they don't have to pay interest. There's an alternative. The world needs us. The world needs us. The world needs an alternative, right? So Iqamatul Deen has to do with we have to build our own Islamic institutions. So whatever your major is, learn that major and then learn the Islamic, the Islamic part as well. For example, you're a business major, learn it, and then learn Islamic business techniques. You're a finance major, learn that, and then learn Islamic financing. You're an architect, cool, learn that, and then learn Islamic architecture. We have to revive our sciences too. Counseling, psychology, cool, learn that. Now learn Islamic psychology as well, right? We have to revive our Islamic sciences. In reviving the Islamic sciences, that's going to help us to Iqamatul Deen. We're not going to just have Muslims running in institutions. We're going to have Muslims running institutions and running them Islamically. So that takes serious struggle. That's a serious struggle. To establish Allah's deen, right? You got to put your life on the line. You got to put your money on the line. You got to put your talents on the line. We're establishing Allah's deen, right? And now, to die doing that, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, that's the highest jihad. He said there's the greatest jihad and there's the highest jihad. What is the most important floor of all of these? The first floor is the most important floor. It's the most important floor. What's the highest floor? The third floor. The most important struggle is a struggle against the self. The highest struggle is the struggle to establish Allah's deen. Islam is a mission. It's a mission. And we have to be involved in the mission of it, right? And so as it relates to America, as it relates to America, the only way we should be here is that we are engaging in these things that I'm talking about. If we're not going to be involved in dawah, if we're not going to be involved in amr wa nahi, if we're not going to be involved in ikamatul deen while we are here, the best thing to do is to leave here. Leave. Leave. The only reason to be here in America is not for the money and not for the flat screen TVs and not for the fancy cameras, not for stuff. That automatically comes. Stuff is stuff. Stuff automatically comes, right? But we should be involved in the mission of Islam in America because Islam is coming up in the West. Have you gone back home yet? Have you gone back home yet? And when you went back home, your family was tripping off the fact that you deening? Deening means like, deening. Practicing your religion. Deening, you know what I'm saying? You ever experienced that? You went back home, right? And they saw you. They expect you to come back with, green hair and tattoos over your face, green lipstick, you know what I'm saying? That kind of thing, right? They expecting that because you're coming from America. It's America. You come back and you deening? You experienced that yet? And they trip it, and you deening more than them, and you're going to a country that's 98.9% Muslim, hear the adhan and stuff, and they ain't really deening that tough? You coming from America, and you deening? You experienced that yet? Islam is coming up in the West. Islam is coming up in the West, right? So what is our role going to be? What's our role going to be? What's going to be our role? Everyone has a role. So right now, your role it involves you being on this campus. This is not where it starts. This is not where it stops. Once you graduate, because remember, the goal is to graduate, right? So once you graduate, you have to make the transition from campus to community, right? But this is where you're at right now. What is going to be your role? Because then you also have to not only, there are people on this campus, non-Muslims, who are going through it. They're searching. American youth are in crisis. American youth are in crisis. Time magazine just said the other day, they had a story the other day where it said there are so many students going to the counseling centers asking for help for anxiety and depression. There are so many, this article said, that the universities can't keep up. American youth are in a crisis. White youth, black youth, brown youth, and Muslim youth too. Muslim youth too. You know what I'm saying? And so the people who are non-Muslims, who are searching, you got to be visible. You got to be out there. You got to be out there. They got to see you. They got to be you. So you have to be active. You got to be involved. You got to be doing your thing. Then there's Muslim youth out there who are struggling, have amnesia, got amnesia, forgot who they are. Forgot who they are. You know what I'm saying? And they're struggling. And they're going to struggle harder. Muslim youth are going to struggle harder. You know why? Because Muslim youth know the truth. It's one thing not to know the truth and you get caught up. It's another thing to know the truth and not use it, and then you get caught up. And so we have to help those Muslim youth. Don't be playing Sunnah police. Don't be playing the Sunnah police. But we have to help those Muslim youth who are out there struggling. The other aspect, too, that we have to do is we have to associate ourselves with causes. One of the causes that you're dealing with Stefan Clark, who we found out, of course, was a Muslim, right? Took a shahada about 3 years ago, they say. But one of the things that African Americans are dealing with is that this upheaval is coming, a social upheaval is coming. African Americans are looked at as being security threats by the people who run this country. We are looked at literally as security threats, all right? And they just commemorated Martin Luther King's assassination yesterday, right? You know, that type of thing, right? Like the way that we're looked at, black people in this country, is that we are security threats. And at the core of that security threat are young black males. And so one of the things that we're seeing, of course, is that young black males particularly are being shot down in cold blood, so on and so forth, right? This is the modern day lynching. The Ku Klux Klan, who used to come at us in white sheets are now coming at us behind a badge. And that's a bit more tricky to deal with. That's a bit more tricky to deal with, right? But this is a major, major issue. It's a major issue. And as Muslims, we should be aligning ourselves with issues dealing with social justice. As long as the issues do not compromise our beliefs, as long as the alliances do not compromise our beliefs, we should be making alliances with people who are struggling for social justice. And one of those alliances should be with African Americans. African Americans and Muslims, we are natural allies. Malcolm said that too. Matter of fact, I just stole that from Malcolm. Malcolm said that black people and Muslims are natural allies, and we are. We really are. And so we have to make sure that we align ourselves with the struggles that are taking place within the African American community around what? Police killings, the police brutality, around mass incarceration. Y'all know slavery is still legal in this country, right? Slavery is still legal in this country. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except when used as a punishment for a crime. So after they got rid of slavery, they basically told us how they're going to come at us. You're allowed to use prisoners as slaves. That's the Constitution. Slavery is still legal in the United States. And who are the prisoners? Right? And so the whole prison industrial complex and so on and so forth, there's some serious things going on, right? Our Latino brothers and sisters who did you see that thing the other day where the 3 children are saying goodbye to their mother and father at the airport? I think it was in Newark, New Jersey, because the mother and father are being deported. And the children were born here, so they're citizens. And so they just broke up the family. This is serious business. That you could be raided at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you could be raided, and you wake up and your parents are gone. What kind of madness is this? And so there's so many things going on that we have to be on the forefront as Muslims on it. African Americans, Latinos, these are the 2 groups that are coming to Islam the fastest, right? And so we have to look at those issues. We have people who will be down with us, who will support us. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to be involved. We got to be involved in those movements. So I'll come to a close because I don't want to take up too much time. Islam is a mission. It's got to be practiced as a mission. The Sahaba only knew Islam as a mission. It's a mission. And if you don't practice Islam as a mission, you're not truly going to understand Islam. You're not really going to taste the sweetness of it, right? Because it is a mission. And so I'm very optimistic. You should be very optimistic, inshallah. You should stay active, inshallah. And now I'd like to get some interaction. Let's get some dialogue, inshallah. I don't want to talk the whole time, inshallah. Aquli qali hada, astaghfirullah li wa lakum. Can I bring this chair out here? Oh, was I supposed to say something about self-defense? I was supposed to say something about self-defense. Is that correct? Yes. Self-defense? Self-defense is halal. Okay, next question? No. Yeah. It is halal. Matter of fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I think Surah 26. What is it? Surah? What surah is that? Ayat is that? And Allah talks about He's giving different qualities of righteousness. And one of the qualities that He gives of righteousness, He said, those who defend themselves when they're being wronged, when they're being oppressed. He's naming these different, those who defend themselves when they're being oppressed. And so, self-defense, of course, is halal. It's allowed. But that's self-defense. What is our offensive position? What is our offensive position? That's self-defense. That's if somebody, what is our offensive position? Are we about violence? No. Muslims are not. Islam means peace. Abu Bakr Siddiq gave us a methodology. He gave us a methodology when he became caliph. When Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu said, paraphrase, it's not verbatim, if I do not follow Allah and His Messenger, if I go off, set me right. But if I don't follow it, what did he say? obey me not. If I'm not following the Quran and Sunnah, you do not have to obey me. What do we call that? That's called civil disobedience. If I'm not following the Quran and the Sunnah, you do not have to obey me. You can disobey me. That's disobedience. When people do it, that's civil disobedience. And I think that civil disobedience, on a massive scale, I think Dr. King was right. I think Dr. King was absolutely correct. I think civil disobedience on a massive scale is what will do it. I think that when they kill, for example, when they kill a brother, I think everything, what the brothers and sisters are doing in Sacramento, that's really good. That's genius. They shut down a Kings game, shut down part of the freeway. Yeah, shut everything down. Shut everything. Don't tear nothing up. Don't burn nothing up, but shut everything down. You kill somebody, you murder somebody, it's going to cost you at least $100 million in lost revenues and disruption. And we have to do it so effectively that every time a cop does something like that, the mayor and the businessmen are angry at him. Look what you did. Look at the havoc that you've caused. We have to make them pay so much that everything has to be disrupted. Everything must be disrupted. Everything, because they worship the dollar. They worship the dollar. So every time something like that happens, there should be so much disruption that the powers that be are angry at the police. They're angry at the police because we have lost so much money. We have lost that type of thing, right? Traffic is tied up. The transportation system is tied up because you went in there, maneuver them into a situation to where they become angry. The powers that be, the power structure becomes angry at the police because all of the damage that it causes. So I think civil disobedience and massive civil disobedience is the way to go. It's the way to go. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers it. So. Mm-hmm.
When we look at the example you gave with regards to building the mission of Islam on top of the pillars as a three-story building.
Right.
With any building, you don't build the third floor and then stick the other two floors under it. So I was asking, my question is, where do you go? When do you know that you should go from one level to the other on an individual level, and also if you're working for the greater community, when do you know to take that to the next?
You know what, brother? When we're involved and active, it just happens naturally. It happens naturally. I don't think we can say, for example, once we get to the first level is like personal, right? Once we get to a certain level, once we become mu'min, then we go to the second level. And then once we go to the second, no. It's more like a simultaneous process. As we are in the process of working on submitting, taqwa, iman, right? Islam, working on submitting to Allah. While we're doing that, in that process, while we're doing that, we're also going to be doing da'wah too. It happens simultaneously. We're going to be doing da'wah. You know what I'm saying? It's simultaneous. Now, the third one, that will require being a part of it's interesting because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about these three stages. Surah Ali Imran, I think it's 102, 103, 104. Check me on that. But remember when Allah talks about fear Allah as he should be feared and do not let death find you when you're not in a state of submission, right? Then the next ayat is hold on to the rope of Allah. So the first one is the individual, right? Taqwa. Do not let death find you when you're not in a state of submission, right? Fear Allah. 2, hold on to the rope of Allah, all of you. Now you're talking about being with a group. You know what the next ayat is? The next ayat is He's talking to the Muslims, and he's saying, let there arise out of you an ummah. So he's talking to the ummah, and he's saying, let there arise out of you an ummah, inviting to all that is good, dawah, commanding the right and forbidding the wrong. It is they who will be successful. So first the individual, taqwa. Don't let death find you when you're not in the state of Islam. 2, get with the other Muslims. Get with them. Hold on to the rope of Allah. The rope is the Quran. Hold on to the rope of Allah. 3, and let there arise out of you an ummah within an ummah. And what will their goal be? Dawah, commanding and forbidding. It is those who will be successful. SubhanAllah. So he's telling us, right? Work on the individual, get with the group, get with the jamaat, but within that jamaat, there should be a group who are dedicated to dawah, commanding and forbidding. That's the mission. The mission of Islam. So it takes place, brother, like, you know how they say organically. I can say that word now, organically. It takes place organically. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a natural type of thing that occurs. And next thing you know, you're going to one level to another. So it's very important. So the jamaat is very important. Go ahead, brother.
So I guess maybe my question could tie up some of the different aspects that you spoke about. But when you're talking about institution building and sort of, alhamdulillah, the rise that we're witnessing of Islam here in the U.S.
And in the world.
Alhamdulillah, now. But more specifically in the West,
Yeah.
we see all over different masajid, different imam, different Islamic institutions working closer and closer with the police, with the FBI, with higher government institutions receiving funding from them, believing that this is raising our status and raising our place here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Others say that this is complete foolishness. If anything, it's losing our deen,
Right.
and it's making us as mere puppets in the hands of these different institutions. So I wanted to ask your opinion on that.
Yeah. To hook up with the FBI and the authorities like that, it's a strategy that's based on fear. That's a strategy that's based on fear. They're afraid. And so, and usually that's a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, that's a part of the immigrant perspective, immigrant mentality, because they feel like guests. I mean, that's real. They feel like guests. You're a guest in somebody's house, you got to behave. You know what I'm saying? But it's one that's more based on fear. I mean, the FBI was one of the groups that was implicated in Martin Luther King's assassination. That's a fact now. People can't say conspiracy theorists. No, that's a fact now. The FBI was involved in his assassination. So when you talk about, when you talk about America and so on and so forth, no, America has their secret police too. They got theirs, y'all may think it comes from just back home. No, America got their thing too. So they're afraid. They're afraid, and so they're trying to show them, no, we're good. They're trying to show them that, we're good. We're good, and so on and so forth. One of the things that has happened is that whenever these situations occur, like a Muslim did this, a Muslim did that, almost all of those are false flags. Those are setups. But our leaders don't say anything. And by not saying anything, you're actually being used as an accomplice. You're being used as an accomplice. Like, come on, you guys. Like, Muhammad Ali dies. Rahimullah. Rahmatullah. That whole weekend, the entire world is honoring a Muslim. Globally. That whole weekend. On Monday, the Muslim shoots up the nightclub in Florida. Come on. Come on, y'all. The day after his funeral, a terrorist goes into a nightclub. He's a Muslim. After people have been praising a Muslim for an entire weekend, that happens. I know y'all ain't go for that okie doke. This is Davis. I know y'all did not fall for that okie doke. And then what did it come out the other day? The guy who did it, his daddy was an FBI informant. How come the FBI is always close by with all this stuff? How come they're all, yeah, we knew this person. Okay, either you're idiots, you knew this person. They always know the person. Yeah, we had him on the list. So either you're incompetent or something's going on. Why do you always know these people? And they were on your radar. And so that backfires on us. That backfires on us. And by us, I'll do another quick one. Inshallah. First World Trade Center, 1993. 1993. That was a false flag, too. And guess what happened? It happened, O.J. Simpson trial. O.J. Simpson trial. An FBI agent takes the stand at the O.J. Simpson trial, dealing with O.J. Simpson. The FBI agent says he was in charge of the bomb department at the FBI. And he says at the O.J. Simpson trial, pressure was put on his office to make it appear that the people who were arrested in the World Trade Center bombing actually did it. He said that at the O.J. Simpson trial, the FBI fired him. His name was Frederick Whitehurst. Look it up. The FBI fired him. He sued the FBI for wrongful termination and got $1 million from the FBI. They fired him because of that statement he made at the O.J. Simpson trial. Pressure was put on his office to make it appear that those who were arrested actually did it at the World Trade Center bombing. That's an FBI agent. The Guardian, 7 months ago, come out with a story. Remember the underwear bomber? Underwear bomber? Amsterdam to here, underwear bomber? The Guardian in the UK came out and said that he was a CIA asset. Now that was on page 495, of course. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that all this stuff, you guys, all this stuff. So by not calling them on it, it's that fear. It's the fear. And so now we're going to say, oh my gosh, Muslims, oh my God, let's go to the FBI and tell the FBI, we're good people, we're good people. No, you're walking into a trap. So that's not the way to go. We shouldn't be doing anything illegal, but at the same time, that's not the way to go. The FBI had to be made accountable. They have to be made accountable because most of these incidences are actually like entrapment. It was the FBI person who suggested it. Let's get some guns. We'll get some guns. It was the FBI informant who suggested these guys get guns. It was the FBI informant who suggested that these guys get some bombs. It was the FBI informant. In all these cases, New Jersey, in all these cases, it was the FBI informant who made the suggestion. That's entrapment. So they have to be held accountable. They've got to be held accountable. So if we're afraid of them, then the strategy is going to be trying to prove to them that we're good people. And so I think we need to use another strategy. Yes, sir. Islam.
So I think, like, you know how you talk about the difference between a certain generation of Muslims who come from other places here versus most of the African American Muslims who are from here.
Right.
I agree with that, but I also think that, and I think you probably would agree, that there are two other categories within those two camps. Because I think after 9/11, the pacification project that the United States, was really involved
Intensified.
in creating new leaders.
It intensified.
They've also actually come up with a whole new brand of American Muslim leaders who are very patriotic.
Yeah.
So they actually diss on immigrant Muslims who are actually very internationalized.
Right.
So within the immigrant community, there are also two types. One that would be like interested in being integrated, and then there's another class of people,
not scholars, some of them were older,
Mhm.
who were very active in actually having international perspective on
Right.
Islam.
Right.
So I think in both communities, they did a double,
Yeah.
like a pacification. They denounced certain masjids that were like really vocal and radical,
Yeah.
that were from African American community
Mhm.
and so on that
Mhm.
were here,
Mhm.
and then changed them with actually not others, but from other African Americans who were pro
Right.
integration.
Mhm.
So I think do you have any comments on that? Because I think one of the main problems that
Mhm.
at this point in the struggle that we're facing is that we're seeing actually a collaboration between the patriotic, quote unquote, indigenous Muslims
Mhm.
and the immigrant Muslims who are integrated.
Yeah.
They have a connection actually.
Mhm.
Because when CARE rep was here, I don't want to say his name, he made it very clear to us. He told me that, back in the day, the guy who's too good, the khutbah, is from, he gave some anti-Arab statements in some ways
Mhm.
by saying that, people didn't even know, so we want to make our own institutions, our own leaders, who are going to understand what America needs and so on.
Mhm.
The same rep is now working behind the Stephon Clark
Mhm.
issue and trying to cut deals with the cops, trying to make it look like
Mhm.
that, hey, you guys don't be rowdy, because I was there at the funeral
Yeah.
in those events. Don't
Yeah.
be rowdy. We're trying to cut deals with the cops, so they won't actually. So they changed one word.
Yeah.
They're calling it a victory, from necessary to sufficient or something.
Right.
Reasonable,
Mhm.
necessary.
Right.
And we know that that's not. Cops are always unreasonable.
Right.
They don't need reason to kill black bodies. They
Mhm.
will do that anyway because that's how they're framed and trained.
Mhm.
So anyway, I was just wanting to see how you think about that. There are actually two types.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah, that's real. And one of the things that happened, and it happened with Muslims, it happened with black folks, it happened with Latinos in the struggle, and it happened in our countries. Leaders were changed. You guys have to make sure that you are able to tell what we call the real ones. You got to be able to tell the real ones because they put fake leaders out there. And a very popular model of leadership now is a celebrity model leadership. That's a very popular model. The celebrity model leadership is a dangerous leadership. And remember, we live in a society where they practice celebrity worship. You know what I'm saying? And so if you're living in a society that practices celebrity worship, and then the celebrity model becomes the model of leadership, the celebrity model, that's dangerous. It's dangerous. The celebrity model of leadership doesn't want struggle. The celebrity model of leadership doesn't want what actually comes with leadership. The type of leaders that Islam produces are powerful leaders. 3 of our 4 caliphs were martyred. We produce powerful leaders, and the enemies of truth and justice are very afraid of the type of leaders that Islam produces. Sheikh Yassin, rahmatullahi, in Palestine, he was a paraplegic, and he was martyred. He was a paraplegic, but they were afraid of him as a leader. Islam produces powerful leaders. Look at our history, powerful leaders. So we don't produce celebrity model type leaders. We produce leaders who are willing to make sacrifices because that's the nature of leadership. You know what I'm saying? There's a burden that comes along with it. The celebrity model wants the perks and the benefits of leadership, fancy hotels and 30,000 people and that kind of thing. But that's really not how that works. That's not how really that works. And there's a tendency, like we believe in Allah, of course we do, but people, Muslims too, will use a materialistic perspective. They will think that a person who has a lot of followers, that means that he's a real leader. That's a materialistic perspective. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. Those who are behind the truth don't have a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? It's like, for example, you see a beautiful masjid and a so-so masjid. You go to the beautiful one. And most cases, there's more fitna in the beautiful one than in just a regular one. But the beautiful one is beautiful. That's a materialistic perspective. So although we believe in ghaib and we believe in, the unseen and so on and so forth, we still use a materialistic perspective. If you say, for example, oh wow, we only had so many people who came out tonight. That's a materialistic perspective. That's a materialistic perspective, right? The fact that there were people here, right, is the victory. There's a program that was done, and people that's the victory. Don't ever use a materialistic perspective. And it can be subtle or have the celebrity models, it's about materialistic. They're at the fancy hotels, they have a whole bunch of followers on Twitter, they have a da-da-da-da-da. It's never about quantity. Allah doesn't deal with quantity, Allah deals with quality. He deals with quality. So be very, very careful. You know what I'm saying? But most people, most Muslims are going to go with a materialistic perspective. Most Muslims are. So be very careful, because in this time, it's a critical time. We need the truth, man. We need the truth. Like, tell the people the truth, and then let them deal with it, how they're going to deal with it. But tell the people the truth. How do we get to this point that we're at right now? Tell them the truth. Tell them what happened in the past that they don't know because they weren't born at that time. Tell them what happened in the past. Tell them how we got to this point. Tell them the truth. Don't hold back. When were the Islamic centers in America taken over? When were the masjids in your countries taken over? And the khatib gets their khutbahs in the mail. Talk about miswak this week. The virtues of miswak. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying miswak is bad. Miswak is important. But not every week. But when did that happen? Why did that happen? When were our masajids taken over in our countries, and when were the masajids taken over here in order to pacify? When did that go down? Why did that go down? It's very important to understand the past, to understand where we're at right now. You know what I'm saying? How was it when you went to an Islamic center in the early 80s, if that brother was Indo-Pakistani, then he had a background with Jamaat Islami, Maududi, if he was Indo-Pak. If he was an Arab, he had a background with Ikhwan. Early 80s. How did that get turned around by 1990? How did that get turned around by that time? What was done to do that? Right? What was done to make you think that all you have to do is engage in ritualistic practices and that's all you need to do and you'll be okay? When did that happen? When did the concept of the sheikh take off? When did that happen? How come in the Quran, the only way sheikh is used is for an old man? How did it become a term of leadership and scholarship? When did that happen? The Prophet never used that term, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahaba never used that term. Sheikh only meant one thing, old man. That's all it meant. How did it become that term of leadership, intelligence, ilm, knowledge, fiqh, sheikh? How did that happen? When did that happen? When did that happen? This is important stuff, because those things give us an understanding of where we're at right now and why we are here. And those are things that you all will have to address as youth. You will have to address those things. You will have to demand a different type of leadership. You will have to demand it. It's got to come from the people, right? When the people decide that they were finished with those leaders back home, when the people decide that they're gone, those leaders are gone. Look what happened to Mubarak. You know what I'm saying? Now, they were still, but look what happened to Mubarak. When the people decide, that's it. We ain't taking no more. Those leaders are gone. And we got some of the worst leaders in the world in our countries. We're the richest people in the world. And we got the poorest people in the world in our ummah. Because the wealth is in the name of families. This is family wealth. This wealth belongs to my family. Not the ummah, my family. So we need new leaders. We have to have new leaders. But the Prophet said, peace be upon him, the people will get the leaders that they deserve. So once we deal with that first floor, you know what I'm saying? Once we deal with that first floor and ourselves, that's taskil bin nafs. Once we deal with ourselves, it'll produce different leaders. It will produce different leaders. But this is just filthy. The only reason why they're allowed to do what they're doing to Gaza, because Egypt is helping them. The Egyptian government is helping them. That's the only reason why they're able to do it. If the Egyptian government wasn't helping them anymore, they wouldn't be able to do that to Gaza. They would not be able to do that to Gaza. But the Egyptian government is helping them. Who are these leaders? Like what? You know, these leaders have to be removed. They have to be removed. These are terrible, terrible leaders. And so here, yeah, there's a pacification process. You know, pacification process. So, yes, ma'am.
So you were saying earlier that we should learn what we're learning now and then learn the Islamic version
Yeah.
of that? So how would you recommend we do that?
There's books, like go to like Islamic bookstores. Like I remember seeing a book called Islamic Management Style. Islamic Management Style. Oh, perfect for a business major. You know what I'm saying? It's like yeah, the books are there. You gotta find them, the bookstores and different bookstores and so on and so forth. But they're there. They're there. You know what I'm saying? There are people who've done books on what is the Islamic methodology of dealing with psychology. What's the Islamic methodology of dealing with psychology? You know what I'm saying? They're out there. They're out there. So you got to look. I don't know if there's a bookstore up this way, but I know there's some in the Bay Area in terms of Sultana in Berkeley, and there's bookstores around. But you find them. You'll find them in different places, like Islamic architecture. You know what I'm saying? Islamic medicine, prophetic medicine, and so on and so forth. Right? There's one brother who's a psychiatrist. He said, a Muslim psychiatrist. He said the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the only one and the earliest one who said that mental illness is that. It's a sickness. Because somebody said, and there's a hadith where the Prophet, peace be upon him, asked, where's so-and-so at? Oh, so-and-so? No, he's crazy. In Majnoon. Don't say that. Say that he's sick. Say that he's sick. And so this Muslim psychiatrist said that was the earliest known statement of someone saying, no, it's a mental illness. He's sick. You could be physically sick. You could be mentally sick. You know what I'm saying? So we have an expression. We have an alternative to that. So we should study theirs. But we also have an alternative too. So check the different bookstores and things like. There's bookstores back east. You know what I'm saying? Halifax, that you can check out their catalogs and things like that. But yeah, they're out there. Yeah, it's out there. It's out there. Yes, ma'am, and yes, ma'am. Both of you, we'll take both. Go ahead. Wake Salam, sister.
So my question is, how would you use social media to revive the Muslim community, or would you recommend using social media? Because on social media, you see a lot of videos on like Islamophobia, but you hardly see any like videos on like promoting Islam.
Yeah, use social media for our benefit. Use social media use it. You know what I'm saying? Use it to propagate. You know what I'm saying? Social media can be a valuable tool. Now, if somebody is just being foolish, they're going to do foolish things with it. But if somebody's in a serious state of mind, they could do some things with social media. You know what I'm saying? They could do some real good things. And plus, you guys got ideas. You guys are creative. You got these ideas and things. So you could get some things done with social media. I say definitely use social media. Use everything we have at our disposal. Use everything we have at our disposal. Right? Yes, ma'am.
So I guess speaking from a Muslim woman who is still under the protection of her parents.
Yes.
Oftentimes parents are protected in the aspect
Of course.
young female being involved in activist and that kind of stuff. And
Yes.
what is the line between disobeying your parents and yet following that mission of Islam?
Yeah. On that particular one, you have to disobey your parents. Dun, 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 dun. No, it's like you activists know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Check this out. What did Allah say in the Quran was the greatest thing in life? His remembrance, right? His remembrance. Now tell the truth. When you do Islamic work, don't you think about Allah a lot? You have Allah on your mind constantly when you're doing Islamic work. Constantly. You know what I'm saying? To do something that produces constant remembrance of Allah, and it's the activism, and you're doing the work. You know what I'm saying? That's what Allah and His Messenger requires of us. It's understandable that they would be concerned. That's understandable. At the same time, like for example, back down south, segregation, colored water fountain, white water fountain, right? When that black mother was walking with her 6-year-old child, and that 6-year-old child said, "Mommy, I want some of that water fountain." No, you can't. Why? That mother knows that when this child grows up, this child is challenging that. They're going to challenge segregation. And that's exactly what the youth did. They challenged segregation. Were the parents concerned? Heck yeah. But the parents knew they were right. And I think your parents will know that you're right. They're concerned, but they know that you're right. Because you're trying to do Islamic work. You're trying to let people know what Islam is really about. You're trying to do what you can to help offset Islamophobia. Your parents know that that's correct. But of course, yeah, they're, you know what I'm saying? But being with a Jamaat, being in a Jamaat, and active in the Jamaat is the greatest protection. It's the greatest protection. Because you, like I said, you're constantly thinking about Allah, and you with the sisterhood. And if something gets too crazy, you got the brotherhood. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Seriously, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you got a Jamaat. You got a Jamaat. And that's where the protection is at. Allah's hand is with the Jamaat, the Prophet said, peace be upon him. And so it's understandable that they would do it, but just reassure them, everything's okay. It's all good. But you have to be active. You have to be. Look what time that we're living in, you know? Go ahead, brother.
So you mentioned the ayah,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so part of the ayah, you also went over how you yourself mentioned it, and many ulama mentioned this as well, where one of the conditions of living in a non-Muslim land in America or not America is that you have to be a da'i, and more than just be on, hey, I'm wearing a shirt that says, Islam,
Yeah.
peace, or giving a smile,
Yeah.
actively giving
Yeah.
to Muslims or non-Muslims, and that movement is so what is your perspective on people who aren't necessarily doing that in the sense that they're getting involved with a government that isn't an Islamic government, which completely goes against Islamic principles and values, and according to many ulama, that is a act of kufr, where Muslims are getting involved in becoming, senates and the political parties and whatever else
Yeah.
there is.
Yeah.
That clearly contradicts what Islamic Sharia.
Yeah. You know, we have to really look at reality. We got to look at reality. America is an empire. It became an empire on February 6, 1899. Read the book, The First Flag, if you can. Stephen somebody, Kisner or something. Huh? Kinsler?
Kinzle.
Thank you. We got a troublemaker in the crowd. Very good. No, but serious book, ain't it?
It's a very good book. He also has another one that goes through 11 coups that the United States did in like 110 years.
Now, and what's deep is that in that book, First Flag, most Americans don't know that the Senate voted to become an empire. You know what I'm saying? Most Americans don't know that. The Senate voted to become an empire. So they voted to become an empire and then erased from the memory of all Americans that ever happened. So now everybody in the world knows America's an empire. Africans, Asians, Europeans. The only ones who don't know are Americans. America's an empire, and it acts exactly like empires act. Violence is commonplace. Empires are violent. So society is going to be violent. You can't have people against violence in an empire, because when the empire uses violence, the people will be against that. So violence has to become popular in the society of an empire. What is the justification for empire? White supremacy. White supremacy. We have to, these people are not ready to rule themselves. They're savages. So we have to civilize them. The rationale for empire, U.S. empire, is white supremacy. It's the white man's burden. This is an empire. As an empire, and ruled by the rich, the corrupt rich, so on and so forth, another reality is that they have 100% control of the electoral process. Not 99% control. I'm saying that the corrupt rich, the mutrafin, as Allah describes them in Quran, have total control of the electoral process. Total control of it. So to get involved in electoral process, right, you're going right into their trap. You're going right into it, right? And we experienced it. They came to the Prophet, peace be upon him. They offered him the keys to the Kaaba. They offered him the keys to the Kaaba. You could be in charge of the Kaaba. You. Now, how come the Prophet didn't say, peace be upon him, oh, I'll change it from within. Each day I'll take out a statue. You know what I'm saying? I'll change it from within. No, you don't change systems from within. Systems are meant to perpetuate themselves. Ain't nobody changing our system from within. Ain't nobody changing our system from within. Systems are meant to perpetuate themselves, right? So when Barack Obama became president, those of us who see reality know that's fake. The United States is still an empire. He's got to serve the empire. He can't do nothing against the empire. He got to serve the empire. And if he starts thinking about doing his own thing, they're going to show him the John F. Kennedy tape. This thing is totally controlled by those forces. It's totally controlled. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said no. What was his solution? He built their own institutions. We built our own institutions. We built our own. As soon as you get in that electoral process, they got you. They got you. As soon as you get in, they got you. Because they control it. So to act like, yeah, and hey, we could have our first Muslim senator. Mashallah. And watch that Muslim senator go to Israel and do that thing in the Wailing Wall. Watch. It's totally controlled. That's why our most powerful leaders were never politicians. Malcolm wasn't a politician. Martin wasn't a politician. Marcus Garvey wasn't a politician. Our most powerful leaders have never been politicians. Because once you get in, they got you. You got to play by those rules. And so it's an illusion. We ain't got time for illusion. And people say, no, you must, oh, come on. You must vote. You must vote. You've got to vote. Vote. Okay. The last election, their vote meant nothing. And they won. They voted for Hillary. Hillary won. And she lost. Your vote meant nothing. You could have not voted and it had the same result. What the Americans need to do is boycott voting. Get angry because there's too much money in it. Can you imagine how America would look internationally? You are the main democracy, but your people are boycotting your elections because they're undemocratic. It would embarrass America. They would change those laws so quick. Those elections should be boycotted, right? A corporation is an individual. A corporation is a human being. Are you kidding me? And therefore, there's free speech. So free speech for a corporation is money. So they can spend as much money on the what? So 80 to 85% of the politicians who have the most money always win. So now, these politicians have to go to the mutrafin, to the corrupt rich, in order to run. in order to run. That's why that was historical what Bernie Sanders did. $27, and he made millions. And the Democratic Party said, we got to stop this. Not the Republican Party. The Democratic Party said, we got to stop this, and they stopped it. Because Bernie Sanders, running as a socialist, would have won the presidency. Hands down. And the Democrats, his party, stopped it. Because they're controlled by the same corporations. We have to stop basing our actions on illusions. You know? Because once we do that, there'll be no real solutions. Well, let's run for office. And then if we have more Muslims, I want a Muslim, I don't want no Muslim president in charge of the empire. I was mad because it's a black president. Boy, my black relatives got mad at me. I said, if Barack Obama gets in office, that's going to set black people back 200 years. They said, man, you crazy. No, I ain't. He's in charge of the empire. He's the figurehead of the empire. And what did the first black president do? Bombed black people in black Africa. Bombed them. Went to Egypt and said, Assalamu alaikum. Mashallah. Recolonize Africa, remilitarize Africa. Kick more Latinos out of this country than any other president. Bombing Muslim countries. Overthrew democratically elected government in Honduras. Had Gaddafi killed. Come on. First black president. Right? Now, he's in charge of the empire. And most Americans, not in charge of the empire, he's a figurehead for the empire, a puppet. So, but most of us are not looking at the fact that America's an empire. We're in this illusion. America is an empire. It's the strongest, most powerful, richest empire in the history of the world. But they never use that word because it ain't cool to be an empire. Bill Keys, Namal, Surah 27. Remember when Bill Keys said kings, when they enter a country? What do kings do when they enter a country? Fasad, afsadu. They spread fasad. Kings are imperial powers. Look what she's saying. Kings, when they enter a country, they spread corruption, right? And they go after a certain people. Who are the people they go after? The people with izzah. Izzah. Who are the people with izzah? The people with self-respect, the people with a sense of honor, who will tell somebody, you're not coming to take my country. They go after the people of izzah to do what? Adillatin, to subdue them, to conquer the people of izzah, the ones who are honorable, subdue them. So what does that imply? They want the people who have no izzah, no sense of honor. They'll sell their mother for money. That's what kings do. So that's why they don't say that they're an empire. They're leaders of the free world. They're the first the democracy. They never use the I word. Not even in college. They don't use the I word. America, they're imperialist power. Now, Barack Obama said America is not imperialist power. Malcolm said it was. Who you going with? Martin said it was. Who you going with? So we can't be looking at illusions. This is the real deal. Here's the real. America's an empire. It's on decline. It's going through the same decline that other empires go through, because empires have to come to a realization, okay, we got to back up. We got to back up or keep going. And the empires that kept going, yeah, they crashed. They crashed. America's about to crash. They're about to crash. You know what I'm saying? That's what happens with empires. You can't spend all this money on wars. You can't spend all this money on wars and then cut taxes on the rich. How are you financing the wars? Think about that. So this bad boy is headed for some serious days. But now, what does Allah say? What is the role of righteous people in an environment that's being punished by Allah? What is the role of righteous people who are in a place where it's being punished by Allah? They have to do dawah. They have to help make the people become God conscious. The story of the people on the Sabbath who were messing around with the Sabbath. Those three groups. One group was going to be destroyed. There's another group who was going to do dawah with them. Another group said to them, why are you messing with these? They're going to be destroyed. Why are you messing with them? And the response was to show Allah that we're not down with this corruption, and perchance they may become God conscious. And what did Allah say? And we saved those who did it. They were saved. The group who said we have to, do it, they were saved. So America's coming down. The corruption is coming down. What is our role then? What is our role? If we don't get active, help the people become God conscious, we're going to suffer from the same stuff they're suffering from too. Anxiety, depression, despair, so on and so forth. I don't want to oppress you. Y'all stay strong, inshallah. Nice seeing y'all. Assalamu alaikum.